Picture this, you just landed a real job, not the part-time thing you had in college, an actual full-time salaried position with benefits, a 401k, everything your parents told you to aim for. You're making $55,000 a year. You feel like you made it. Then you open your phone and start looking for an apartment. Within 4 minutes, something inside you dies a little. A studio? No bedroom, just one room where you sleep, eat, and exist. $1,800 a month. A one-bedroom 40 minutes from work? $2,200. Anything with a washer and dryer, anything that doesn't smell like the previous tenant's regrets? $2,600, $2,900, $3,100. And every single listing has the same line at the bottom. Must earn 3x monthly rent to qualify. 3 times. Not to be comfortable, not to save money, just to be allowed to hand them your paycheck every month. Do that math with me. A $2,000 apartment requires $6,000 per month income to qualify. That's $72,000 per year before taxes. And the median individual income in the United States right now is around $40,000 per year, which means the average American worker cannot qualify for the average apartment in most major cities. My name is Andrew, and this channel exists because someone has to say the quiet part out loud. If you're tired of being told to just budget better while rent eats half your paycheck, hit subscribe and let's actually look at these numbers together. Here is the number that should stop you cold. According to the National Low-Income Housing Coalition, there is not a single state in America where a full-time minimum wage worker can afford a 2-bedroom apartment at fair market rent. Not one. Not Mississippi, not Arkansas, not the cheapest state you can name. Nowhere. This is not a local problem. This is not a you problem. This is a structural collapse in the relationship between wages and housing costs that has been building for decades and has now reached the point where the math simply does not work for a massive portion of the population.
You've heard the rule. Don't spend more than 30% of your income on housing. Financial advisors say it, parents say it. It gets repeated so often, it's become gospel. Here's the problem. It was developed in the 1960s when wages and housing costs existed in a completely different relationship. Applying a 60-year-old guideline to 2026 is like using a 1960s map to navigate a city that's been completely rebuilt. Let me show you exactly how broken it is.
If you earn $50,000 per year, 30% of your gross income is $1,250 per month for housing. Go find a one-bedroom apartment in any major US city for $1,250. In most major metros, that number doesn't get you a studio. In some cities, it doesn't get you a room in a shared apartment. A recent Harvard housing study found that nearly half of all renters in the United States are now cost-burdened, spending more than 50% of income on rent. Half! And about a quarter are severely cost-burdened, spending more than 50% just on rent. 1 in 4 renters is handing over half their paycheck before buying a single grocery item or paying a single utility bill. That is not a budgeting problem. That is a structural crisis wearing a budgeting problem's clothes. Let me walk you through what renting actually costs when you factor in everything that listings conveniently leave out. Say you find a one-bedroom for $1,900 per month, reasonable by 2026 standards in most mid-sized cities. Here's the real monthly cost. Rent, $1,900. Renter's insurance, which your landlord probably requires, roughly $20 per month. Utilities not included, electricity, gas, water, roughly $150 to $200 per month. Internet, which is no longer optional, $70 per month. Parking, if your building doesn't include it, $100 to $150 per month. You are now at $2,240 to $2,340 per month for that $1,900 apartment, before food, before transportation, before your phone bill, before anything that makes life feel like life. Now reverse engineer the income you actually need. Using the 30% rule, $2,300 in monthly housing costs means you need to earn $92,000 per year. The median household income in the US is around $74,000, which means a median household is already over the line on a $1,900 apartment. And one person earning the median individual income of $40,000 is spending nearly 70% of their gross income on that same unit. 70% on one line item before taxes even come out. So who is filling these apartments? Because leases are being signed. People are making it work somehow. What's actually happening? The first group is dual-income households. 2 salaries, 1 rent payment. A couple each earning $45,000 to $50,000 brings in $90,000 to $100,000 combined, and suddenly the 30% rule actually works. The problem is this solution is completely unavailable to single people, who represent a massive and growing share of the renting population. The rental market has effectively priced out solo adults. The second group is people with financial help they don't talk about. Parents co-signing leases, family quietly covering the security deposit, a transfer that shows up when the account runs short.
This help is real, it is widespread, and it is almost never acknowledged when people describe how they afford their place. The illusion of financial independence is often maintained by invisible support structures that not everyone has access to. The third group is people who are genuinely drowning but haven't admitted it yet. They qualified on paper because their income cleared the 3x threshold, but they are spending 50 or 60% of take-home pay on housing and surviving on whatever remains. No savings, no emergency fund, one car repair away from a credit card balance that takes years to clear. And the fourth group is people who have made serious sacrifices that their social media presence doesn't show. Roommates at 35, a 90-minute commute each way, a neighborhood they settled for because it's what they could access. These are not failures. These are rational responses to an irrational market. But they are also not the picture of comfortable, independent adult life that the culture keeps telling you that you should have achieved by now. This didn't come out of nowhere. The affordability crisis has been building for decades through several reinforcing causes. Wages have not kept pace with housing costs. Over the past 30 years, rents have increased by roughly 150%. Median wages have increased by about 50% over the same period. That gap, 150 versus 50, is the entire crisis summarized in two numbers. Housing supply has not kept up with demand. For decades, local governments restricted new construction through zoning laws, building codes, and community opposition to development. Less supply against growing demand means prices only move in one direction. Institutional investors began purchasing single-family homes and rental properties at scale following the 2008 financial crisis, converting would-be starter homes into rentals and further tightening an already constrained supply while pushing rents upward to maximize returns. And finally, remote work briefly created a surge of higher-income workers relocating from expensive cities into previously affordable markets, bringing their big city salaries and big city willingness to pay into smaller local markets that had no capacity to absorb the demand. The affordable cities got expensive fast, and the people who already lived there got priced out of their own neighborhoods. None of these causes are your fault. None of them are fixed by making your coffee at home. So what do you actually do with this information? First, stop measuring your financial health against the 30% rule as if it still describes reality. If you are spending 40 or even 45% of your income on rent in a high-cost market, that is not necessarily a sign that you are bad with money. It may simply be the price of living where the jobs are. Second, calculate your actual number, not the rent, the real total monthly cost, including utilities, insurance, parking, and every recurring fee associated with the unit. Then compare that to your real take-home pay, not gross income. The gap between those two numbers is the only number that actually matters. Third, if the math genuinely doesn't work and you have options, use them. Roommates are not a failure. A cheaper market is not a defeat. Staying with family temporarily while you build savings is not embarrassing. These are strategic moves in a market that has made the traditional path genuinely inaccessible for a lot of people. And finally, stop blaming yourself for a system that was not designed with your income in mind. The rental market in 2026 was not built to be affordable for median earners. It was built to generate returns for property owners. Understanding that distinction doesn't solve the problem, but it does stop you from adding shame to an already expensive situation. Look, I'm not going to tell you this gets better soon. I don't know that it does. What I can tell you is that understanding these numbers clearly is the first step toward making decisions that are actually based on your real situation rather than on guilt about not meeting a standard that was set 60 years ago for a completely different economy. The rent is too high. The wages are too low. The math is brutal. And none of that is a personal failing. If this video helped clarify things, hit subscribe. I'll see you in the next one.